What's up, guys? I wanted to talk about this new movement, I guess you could call it, called Justice Democrats. And some of you may have seen a couple of posts that I made on the subject of Justice Democrats. And I wanted to clear up some things because I wanted to let everyone know that I still support third parties. I still support mostly the Green Party. I'm really not, and a lot of you may have heard me say this before in one way or another, that I'm really not devoted to one particular party. If I see someone that I think is a fantastic politician and they're in another party, I'll vote for them. Take, for example, Tulsi Gabbard. I would vote for her in a heartbeat. Obviously, she's not your run-of-the-mill Democrat. She seems to go against the grain when it comes to Democrats, especially on matters of war. But I used to think that it was all about local politics, or that a person could ignore the White House and just get into their local politics. Well, I don't know if you've been paying attention to Washington, D.C. lately, but that used to be true, but it's no longer true. These people are finding all kinds of ways to really get around that political method of sustaining yourself or sustaining your community. For example, you look at a lot of these trade laws, you're paying attention to your local politics, and you'll make laws that protect your environment and things of that nature. But what you don't know is that people in Washington, D.C. and the White House have slipped in something so that a company could, for example, come and sue your community for enforcing your own laws that you had your local politicians pass. And you won't know anything about it because you're not paying attention to Washington. You're not paying attention to what Congress is doing. You're not paying attention to what kind of laws is being passed in Washington. So you think, oh, we're good. My politicians are looking out for us. But the next thing you know, you've told some company that for whatever reason, you don't think they're a good fit for your community because they're a danger for whatever reason. Take your pick. And then the next thing you know, they got you in federal court and they're suing you. And these companies, they're winning and they got a lot of money, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. But that's just an example of what I'm talking about. Washington has got hip to that. They know that people are taking that strategy, paying attention to local politics. So they're coming up with ways. They're not going to just sit up there and just be defeated in that way. So now we're back to a point where you do kind of have to pay attention to local politics. Now, another thing I want to get out of the way, I see people on social media saying, yeah, the Green Party needs to, if they just become dog catcher or something first, I'll vote for them. Well, start voting because the Green Party has candidates in various positions all over the country. I may think about supplying you with a link down in the description section if you're checking this out on YouTube, or I may not, because that's very simple. You can very easily look that up, But yeah, they're all over the country. So if you really mean that, if you're not just being sarcastic, that if they just win dog catcher, you'll think about voting for them. Well, welcome to the fold. But one thing we have to be realistic about is this. The Green Party is not going to win the White House, probably in my lifetime. Most of the American people just aren't ready for that kind of movement. And if you were to accomplish that or just get to a point where that's pretty much a viable threat to the mainstream politics, they would probably figure out a way to cheat you. They probably would figure out a way to cheat you because Green Party candidates are complete outsiders. One thing about the Democratic Party, once you're on the inside, you're rubbing shoulders with people on the inside. So even if you're an honest Democrat, you have more access to what's going on than someone that's an outsider, say like a Jill Stein. So we had to be realistic about our odds of getting in the White House. Now, if you get a neoliberal Democrat in the White House, they're not going to do the reverse of what Donald Trump did. In other words, they're not going to go in and start writing executive orders that's good for the people as aggressively as he's writing executive orders that's bad for the people. Okay, that's not going to happen. In fact, I would be very surprised if they didn't decide to just, like if you get a Cory Booker in there, he's probably going to end up keeping a lot of Donald Trump's executive orders, and you won't be able to depend on the mainstream media to inform you and break it all down. They won't be keeping an eye on him like that because he'll be a mainstream neoliberal Democrat. They're not going to micro-investigate him the way they're doing Donald Trump. They're not going to say, oh, look, he's not reversing any of these executive orders. They're going to make it look like everything's grand, everything's great. He's doing a fantastic job. Oh, he's the second coming of Jesus Christ and this, that, and the other. So we do need to get someone like a Tulsi Gabbard in there. And if she runs, I was going to say I'm thinking about voting for her. If she runs, because I haven't heard any other names, I'm definitely going to vote for her. In fact, I can't imagine anybody else who would say they would run that would change my mind about that. Tulsi Gabbard isn't perfect, but she doesn't have to be. She's perfect to me, but I know she won't be to a lot of people. You'll find that out if she runs. And but just remember that there is no such thing as a perfect candidate, and the media is going to take any little thing they can, and they're going to just completely blow it out of proportion, and they're going to try to destroy Tulsi Gabbard on these small things. So just, have your own independent mind and just realize that every candidate is going to have some things you can point at and say, I don't like that particular thing. There is nobody, all the perfect candidates, they're lying to you. That just wraps that up in a nutshell. All perfect candidates are only perfect because they're lying to you and they're flip-flopping. In other words, there was something you didn't like, but damn, what do you know? They changed their mind about it. They think like me now. No, they don't. They just lied to you. And for some strange reason, people accept that. Sometimes I feel like I'm looking at the Twilight Zone. I'm looking at people. They're just like perfectly okay with it. Oh, look, they changed their mind. It's not a coincidence. They really did. They really went home and sat down and thought about it, and they had some coffee, and they decided, oh, I'm wrong, and they changed their mind. Okay, whatever. Even you don't believe that, but yeah, I'm keeping an eye on this Justice Democrats. I made a post before saying that it would be very easy to pay attention to whether or not they're going to be worthy of supporting in 2020, because one of the things they're going to do is they're going to be primarying a lot of neoliberal or establishment Democrats. I don't know if anybody knows it, but here in California, we pretty much already ran a lot of them out, and it's looking pretty good. There are some places where more progressive style Democrats are winning. They're running against neoliberal Democrats and they're defeating them. So don't let anybody tell you that a movement like Justice Democrats won't work, because even before the day that it launched, it was working anyway. There were already people who were getting rid of establishment Democrats. So I think it's also important to remember Justice Democrats is just an organization. It's not redefining what Democrats is. It's not a label like progressive or whatever. It's just the name of a movement, an organization. You're still just a Democrat. Like all of those Democrats who were involved in primarying those establishment Democrats in those places I was just talking about, they would be Justice Democrats. Even if they're not officially in the organization, they still believe in the same thing that the movement Justice Democrats believe in. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing. So I just wanted to get that out there. my main focus is, like I said, I used to be in that crowd who ignored Washington D.C., but you just can't afford to do that anymore. You have to pay attention to what's going on in Washington D.C. right now, because man, there's a lot of raping of the people going on in Washington D.C.